Hi, this is Jasmine Mishra. Today we'll talk about the age of darkness or the age of barrenness, which was called so because it was an age of non-productivity. There was not much that happened in the literature scene in Britain. As already has been discussed in the age of Chaucer, that the 100 Years' War was already going on from 1337 to 1554, and then from 1454, and then from 1453, and then from 1455 till 1485 we had 30 Years' War. It was between House of York and House of Lancaster. House of York symbolized white rose and House of Lancaster symbolized red rose. Remember, because one question has been asked in NET on this. So between these two houses, the 30 Years' War happened, and because of first 100 Years of War and then this 30 Years of War, people were involved in the War of Roses and the other war, 100 Years of War. So they were not free to act on the literary scene, or they were not free, as you must understand that literary productivity depends a lot on the peace also. If there is the situation of peace and if there is encouragement to that, then a lot of productivity happens, a lot of works we get. But in this age, they were courtiers, etc. The men of learning, a lot of men of learning were involved in the wars. So the age of barrenness. However, people who were in the education field have written a few important works in this age. We will talk about it, but first we will talk about the poetry of the age, which can be divided into two parts. First is less important or imitative works, and then the second we will talk about were more important original works. So in the imitative work category, we have Chaucerian poets or poets of the school of Chaucer. First we'll talk about The Flower and the Leaf, a poem which is not known. It was by an anonymous poet, but the language is, looking at the language, it has been ascribed to Chaucer, The Flower and the Leaf. However, there were two important or famous Chaucerian, Thomas Occleve and John Lydgate. So Thomas Occleve has written The Governal of Princes in Rhyme Royal, and Thomas Lydgate has written Stories of Thebes, designed as a new Canterbury Tales and Troy book. But his most important work is Falls of Princes, which was based on French paraphrase of a Latin work by Boccaccio. This work also becomes important because in 16th century, in continuation to this work, a Mirror for Magistrates was written, which was that again tragical histories of famous Englishmen, and it was mainly written by Thomas Sackville, though there were many other contributors. So Falls of Princes by John Lydgate becomes important in this age. Then we'll talk about the original poems. So then there is The King's Choir by James I of England, written in Chaucerian stanza, which from this use came to be known as Rhyme Royal. You should remember that though Chaucer invented Rhyme Royal, but it got this name through the use of James I in the book The King's Choir. Then comes William Dunbar, which has been called as the greatest English poet between Chaucer and Spenser. So he has written The Thistle and the Rose, which is an allegorical poem composed to commemorate marriage of James IV of Scotland and daughter of Henry VIII of England. The thistle, it symbolized Scotland because a plant of the thistle type was used as the Scottish national emblem, and rose was the national emblem of England. So the thistle and the rose actually symbolizes Scotland and marriage of or association of Scotland and England. Apart from this allegorical poem, he has also written Dance of the Seven Deadly Sin. He was the first poet laureate of Scotland. Then we move towards the more important work of this age, and then we have William Caxton. It's very important to remember that Caxton in 1476 has got a printing press to England in 1476. That year and the name of William Caxton both are very important. And then he has written few books also which were not that important. But then we have Desiderius Erasmus. Please check the spellings online when you prepare notes. Desiderius Desiderius Erasmus. He has written Praise of Folly in 1511. It was written in Latin, and in this book it's said that knowledge is the base of all suffering. This book inspired 20th century writer Hilary Belloc to write on ignorance. Then we have Thomas More's Utopia. In Latin it was written in 1516 and it got published in Latin, but later it got translated by Ralph Robinson in 1551 in English. In English this is called Kingdom of Nowhere, and it has other names also like Prologue to Modern Socialism or Prologue to Renaissance or Masterpiece of Humanism. These are also the names from which Utopia is known, but two most important are Utopia in Latin and in English Kingdom of Nowhere. In this book, in last net, it was asked about certain options were given, and it was asked which was banned in Utopia. So gambling, makeup, hotels, hunting, astrology, these things were banned in Utopia, and there was no privacy, and there were certain bans on women also, like women were supposed to convince any wrong they are doing to their husband once a month. And it has two books. First book is Dialogue of Council and second book is Discourse on Utopia. While talking about William Caxton, what we have missed is the first printed book in England, that was the Dicts and Sayings of the Philosophers. That was in 1477. In 1476 he started printing press, and in 1477 this book got printed. So this is one very important question. First book printed in England. Remember that when you get these kind of questions, you should read the question very carefully. The question can be which was the first printed book. If the question is that, then the answer would be Gutenberg Bible. But if the question is which was the first printed book in English, then the answer would be the Recall of the Histories of Troy, or just the History of Troy. It was printed in 1473, so that could be the second question. But if the question is which was the first printed book in England, then Dicts and Sayings of Philosophers was the first book. And then we have another important writer, Thomas Malory, who has written Maud the Arthur or Death of Arthur. It was published in 1485. It was completed in 1470, but it was published in 1485, and the central idea is Search of a Holy Grail. It was first ever compilation of Arthurian cycle. And one important thing about this book is that Tennyson's Idylls of the King was based on it. Then in this age, certain important translations also happen, like William Tyndale's translations of New Testament from Greek happened in 1525, and then he later translated Old Testament from Hebrew. However, William Tyndale's Bible was incomplete. Much of it was included in Cromwell's Bible that came in 1539, first authorized edition of the Bible in English. It got authorized by King Henry VIII to be read aloud in the church services of the Church of England. Please remember, it's very important that Cromwell's Bible was the first authorized edition of the Bible in English. And then came Cromwell's Bible was prepared by Miles Coverdale. So it was complete English Bible. So first complete English Bible was prepared by Miles Coverdale. The Great Bible is sometimes wrongly called Cranmer's Bible. And then we have Roger Ascham, who was tutor of Elizabeth. And his first book was Taxophilus, or School of Archery for Princes, and second book was Schoolmaster, which has talked about need of training for teachers. And then in 1557 came Total's Miscellany, first printed anthology of English sonnets. It was the first printed anthology of English sonnets, in which mainly sonnets of Wyatt and Surrey was there. There were few other contributors also, but mainly were sonnets of Wyatt and Surrey. So it has 271 sonnets in total. And what is history of sonnets? That it came from Italy to England. It started in Italy, and these were mainly Petrarchan sonnets that they have written out here. So, and then from Italy to England, it was brought by Wyatt and Surrey. So, and the structure of the sonnets are again important. So, it has 14 lines in total, 8 lines octave and 6 lines sestet. So, it was imitated by Milton also in his poem On His Blindness. Or Surrey, or Earl of Surrey, or Henry Howard has got blank verse. He is important because he got blank verse. He brought blank verse to English literature, or he first used blank verse in English literature. The structure of octave and sestet that I have told you, this was used by Wyatt, but by Earl of Surrey or Henry Howard used 3 quatrains of 4 lines each plus 1 couplet for his sonnets, which are called English sonnets. So octave and sestet are called Petrarchan sonnets, and English sonnets had 3 quatrains plus 1 couplet. It was imitated by Shakespeare for Shakespearean sonnets. In the octave and sestet style, the question or the problem will be laid out in 8 lines, and in the last 6 lines, that is in sestet, answer would be there. While in English sonnets, the problems or the questions will be in the quatrains, while the answer will be in just one couplet. That's it for this age, friends. We'll talk about Elizabethan age in our next lecture.